Hello everyone, so I am here with a small book haul, and also some of you requested that I do some of my book reviews, so this will be my first book review. I don't think I'm very good at doing book reviews, summarizing books, but I'll try to do my best. I do have a lot of books right now that I have to return to the charity shops. I just drop them off and then they sell them, and yeah, I do, because of the lockdowns and that since the COVID began, we haven't been able to return books. So I think they're letting us do that now, but I got a huge pile of books that I'll review first before I return. So I have probably, I don't know, oh God, I really don't know, maybe close to 100 books that I read in the past year and a half or so. So I will just start with a handful of them and then try to finish them up over the next few weeks because they're taking up a lot of room. Yeah, I usually don't keep any books because if I did, I wouldn't be able to move in this house. I do a lot of reading. I have been a bookworm since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So I did do a bit of a haul from Amazon. Now, I've never ordered books from Amazon. I usually go to Costco, or I just stick with used bookstores. But I was on this new site. Well, it wasn't a new site, but it's a new site to me, called Book Outlet, which is a Canadian online bookstore. And it has some really good books at a really good price. So I ordered probably about 25 books from them over a few orders. So they'll be here next week, so I'll definitely do a haul when I receive those. But I will link that site below. If you're Canadian, I know they do ship to the States, but Canadian orders, if you buy $45 and up, it's free shipping. So that's a really good deal. So I try to remember to link bookoutlet.ca below. But when I was looking on the Book Outlet site, I noticed this author called Anna Lee Huber. And just the books, it's a Lady Darby mystery series. And they sounded so good. First of all, they take place in Scotland. I love mysteries that take place in Great Britain, like Ireland, Scotland, England. So this is in Scotland in 1830. And Lady Kira Darby, her husband has passed away, so she takes refuge at her sister's estate. People kind of frown on her because her husband was an anatomist, and of course back then that was very unnatural and frowned upon if you like studied the human body. But she did learn quite a bit from her husband in that. So when one of the house guests passed away, she, with her skills, learning from her husband, learning the skills of learning the skills of an anatomist, studying the human body, she is able to help find out who killed this person. So it just sounds so good. So I ended up ordering the first 4 books because I assumed I'm going to like this. So the first one's called The Anatomist Wife. And then the second one is called Mortal Arts. And I think which one's the third one? Anyway, A Grave Matter and A Study in Death. So I just ended up getting all 4 of the first books because just reading them, and I just kind of read one chapter, and I just know I'm going to really like it because it's historical, takes place in Great Britain, it's a mystery, and it's a very strong woman character. So, and then one of my subscribers, Hope Springs, suggested this author, Barbara Erskine, The River of Destiny. So I did mention on my last video that I did like mysteries that took place in the present and then kind of went back and forth from the past to present. So during the present, they're probably trying to solve some mystery or what have you. And at the same time, you know exactly what happened in that location, but you know, 100, 200 years ago, what's happening with those people at the same time. I really like those books that kind of bounce back and forth. So this one, the summary sounded really, really good. So on the banks of the River Deben in Suffolk lie ancient barns dating back to Anglo-Saxon times. So new arrival Zoe and Ken move into one of the converted barns, ready to start a new life from the hustle and bustle of the city. Meanwhile, the strange presence Zoe feels within their home and the ghostly shapes she sees through the mist on the river are getting harder to ignore. And nearby, farmers are plowing the land beside the river and human bones are found. And what is the secret of the grassy mound which has remained untouched for many centuries? It just sounds really, really good. So thank you, Hope Springs, for that suggestion. And then I did get the final Ruth Ware. So I do have the other, I think, 4 or 5 books of hers. I did want to get this one, the Lying Game. So I do have all of her books right now. And this woman receives a text from an old friend, and why else would Kate summon her and their 2 friends to the seaside town where they attended the Salton House boarding school together 17 years ago. So they bonded over this game called the Lying Game, a risky contest that involved tricking fellow boarders and faculty with their lies. And now, reunited, the 4 friends discovered that their past lives have far-reaching implications that threaten them all. So yeah, Ruth, got all the Ruth Wares now. So that was my little haul, and then next week when I get all my books from the book outlet, all 25 or so of them, then I'll definitely do a video on that. So I'll start with some of the books that I read over the past year and a half or so. It's going to take a while. I'll just do a handful of them today. But this one is one of my favorite mystery series, and this is by Cora Harrison, and I bought this in Attic Books downtown for just $1, and I'm absolutely in love with this series. So this takes place in 1509 in medieval Ireland, and they do have Brehon law there. So instead of following English law, they're still at that time following Brehon law. So the judge in this particular part of Ireland is a woman. Her father was a Brehon judge, and she took over, which was unusual in itself for a woman judge. But she's extremely intelligent, and the mysteries are really good. There's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of suspects, but I didn't lose track. It was fairly easy because there's a lot of different characters in here. But I have read the first 3, and I think I'm on the 4th one now. Yeah, it's just, you learn about Ireland, like everyday life in Ireland at that time. You learn about the laws, and they're just really, they're characters you can really get into and care about. So really loving the Cora Harrison Lady Judge series. And this is The Stranger in Our Home by Sophie Draper. And this woman, her father dies when she's fairly young, and then her stepmother takes care of her, and her stepmother is not very nice, to say the least. And her stepmother ends up dying, and she goes back to the house with her sister. Oh, I just got to cool off my camera for a minute. Okay, sorry about that. So she goes back to the stepmother's house with her sister, and her sister says, listen, you can have it. I don't need the money. You can have it. And she accepts quite readily because she doesn't have a lot of money and really has no place to live, so she takes over. There was a tragedy when she was a child, but she can't remember at all. She's just completely forgotten. And the more she's there, the more strange things happen. Slowly things start coming back to her, and yeah, there's quite a twist at the end, which was really good. So I really enjoyed reading that mystery. And then Preston and Child, there are two authors who write these books together, and most of them are about an FBI agent called Aloysius Prendergast, who's probably the most fascinating character in fiction for me. I just love his character, and he has a mentor, a young woman who had a very rough childhood, and the agent took her under his wing, and she became an FBI agent. So these are two of her stories. Her character's okay. I don't know. I just don't can't quite get into her as much as Aloysius Prendergast, the other FBI agent. But the storylines are very good. They mix. There's a mix of science and history and adventure, mostly history and adventure. But I really do love those books. And this is The Forbidden Place. It takes place in Sweden. There's a biologist who studies wetlands and marshlands, and she goes back to her hometown to do some studies, and something tragic happened in her past too. She knows the end result of the tragedy. She just doesn't really remember what actually happened. She's kind of forgotten, just like this other woman in the other book. They just kind of forgot. It was so tragic. And yeah, there's a lot of bodies start showing up in the marshlands and that. Some not old bodies, like the peat bog kind of bodies, but these are within the last 10 years or so. So it's a really good mystery. And this is The Last Witchfinder by James Morrow. It's quite a large book, and it's about, it takes place in 1688, and there is witch hunters going around arresting women, mostly, some men who believe in science and believing in natural medicines and that to heal, because that's all they had back then. And I think it's the niece of this witch finder is into science herself and is trying to protect her aunt from her uncle from the other side of the family, to help her because she is now considered a witch. And that it takes place over many, many years, and a little bit unrealistic at times about what she goes through, just adventure-wise. But anyway, it kind of dragged on longer than it should have because of all these other things that were happening to her. But anyway, it was still fascinating how people treated these natural healers as witches and that sort of thing. And she ends up going on trial herself, and what happens during the trial and how she can save herself. And so other than dragging out a little bit longer than it should have, there was parts of it where it's like, this is really not necessary, but it's still pretty good. So Tana French, and this is The Trespasser. She's an Irish writer. Very good detective novels, murder mystery novels. Lots of characters, lots of suspects, lots of twists and turns. I just like her writing style. Probably mentioned a lot about a flow of a book. Some they go back and forth from present to past, or they go from one character, what they're doing, to another, and they jump back and forth. Sometimes that can seem a little choppy. Other times it makes you want to just read and read and read, because each chapter is kind of a cliffhanger. So this one works really well. It's just one of those books where you just can't put it down because it's kind of a cliffhanger at the end and you just want to keep reading. So I really do enjoy Tana French books. This is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, and this is about a woman's mother starts an apothecary shop specifically for women's ailments, because male doctors back then, that's all there was, and they just didn't quite understand women's problems. So they would all go to this apothecary. Then her daughter took over when her mother died, and something very tragic happened, and she just hates men. So women come to the shop to kill off these men, and things go wrong. People start suspecting her, and her young girl, a young girl that showed up one day as her assistant, it just follows what happens when they're discovered and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's very sad, actually, how because it shows how women were treated, well, still not treated that great, but how they were treated and by men in society and that sort of thing. And this is the tea planter's wife. So this woman is a second wife to this man. The first wife died tragically. They moved to India, and when she becomes pregnant and after the birth, things go wrong, and I won't go into specifics in that, but it's very tragic how racism and lack of communication, etc., just played into the tragedy at the end there. But I really enjoyed this book. You learn about how the British colonials interacted with the East Indian people and the prejudice, etc. It was a very sad but very good book. This is the second book in the series, and I didn't read the first book, but it is kind of a standalone book. The first book was called The Bookshop on the Corner by Rebecca Raisin, and this is the little bookshop on the Seine. So this woman is just getting a little antsy with her life in the small town, and she knows someone who owns a bookstore in Paris, so they decide to do like a little exchange for 6 months. So she moves to Paris and works at her friend's bookshop. And yeah, it's okay. I do like books based on little bookshops and that sort of thing. It's just I like a little more adventure and mystery and like a thriller kind of atmosphere to my books. So it was okay. I mean, I did enjoy it. I did, kind of care about the characters and that sort of thing, but it's not normally something I read. So it was okay. As Bright as Heaven, I've shown this one before. So this takes place, a family that has 3 daughters. They're tobacco farmers, and they move to the big city and take over the uncle's job as a caretakers, and undertakers, I should say. And it takes place near the end of the First World War, and then the beginning of the pandemic, 1918 pandemic. So probably about 3/4 of the book takes place in 1918, what happens to the family and how they cope with everything, and then the last quarter of the book they jump ahead to 1926 or so and show what's happened in the future. So I really did, I did like this book. And then The Devil's Day, and oh man, I read this a long time ago. It takes place in the where is it? The Emlynds in Britain, and yeah, they're it's kind of based on a superstition, maybe 100 years or so ago, and there is there is a murder in there, but it's based more on this particular family, and there's a lot of, what am I trying to say? There's a lot of conflict between 3 or 4 families that live in the area. Things have happened in the past, so there's still a lot of tension among these families and that sort of thing. Yeah, it was okay. I didn't mind it. Oh, I overheated again. The first time I filmed this, it wasn't focused, so I had to do it again, so the camera's a little overheated. So it was, if it had taken place maybe, I don't know, a couple 100 years ago, I don't know, it was okay. It was a good mystery in that, and, but yeah, it was okay. So that's it for now. I think that's enough. So I'll just try to do a few books each day to get through this pile, and then I'll return them to the shop, so I'll have more room to work. So I hope you enjoyed. I know I'm not the best book reviewer in the world, but so next week hopefully I'll get all those yummy books from Book Outlet. outlet, and I can share those with you. I got some really, really good ones. And so thanks again for all your suggestions. I'll certainly look into them. And yeah, let me know what books you enjoy. And so we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.